I started this concrete company and grew it to $100,000 per month in our second year in business, and now we're projected to do $4 million in 2025. And over the past 2 years, I've worked with 100 other concrete businesses, marketing and coaching for them. So in this video, I'm gonna be breaking down the exact steps on how to scale to $100,000 a month, and most importantly, doing it profitably. Disclaimer, there's other concrete models out there that will also get you to $100,000 a month, but I specifically made this video so you're not only making revenue, but you're actually gonna be making a profit at the end. And the way that I designed this is so that you should be making about 4 times more profit than other models out there. We're gonna cover everything you need to scale, everything from lead generation. Once you get a lead, how do you actually sell that lead? How do you stand out from your competition? What equipment do you need? What team do you need? What do you need to charge for pricing? The financial model, everything. So this video is gonna cover it all. You're gonna love it. Sit tight and enjoy. All right, guys, so we're back in the office and I'm really excited to teach you guys and share with you guys basically like my past 6 to 7 years life work, everything that I know about how to get customers, how to sell jobs, how to scale, the team, finances, all that stuff. It's all gonna be covered. But to be honest, there's a reason why I didn't make this video for a very long time. And the main reason was because I don't really like the title of it, which is how to scale, because in reality, there's so many different ways to scale. So in order to make this video, I wanted to preface the type of model that I'm really going to present to you and why I'm presenting this model versus some of the other ways that you can do it. And to do that, I think to illustrate everything, I want to kind of show you guys where I started, because where I started is where I think most people, how they scale to $100,000 a month, and why I think it's wrong. So fast forward to my company, and about 2 years in, I had done about $1.2 million in work my second year in business. And I remember it so vividly because I was sitting there and that was everything I ever wanted. I wanted to do like $100K a month, $1.2 million a year. Like that was so cool to me. Like I wanted to have a seven-figure business, and I finally did it. And I was sitting there and it was at Christmas, and a lot of my family, they were sitting there and they were like, "Hey Tyler, how's your business?" Because everyone was like so interested to see how I was doing. They haven't seen me because I had been so busy. I finally like stopped working and set aside some time to talk to my family at Christmas. And I kind of put on like a fake smile. I was like, "Oh, it's good. I did 7 figures this year." And they were like, "Oh my God, that's awesome." And all that. But little did they know on the inside, like my heart was beating, like my palms were sweaty. And I was so nervous because although I had done $1.2 million that year, I was looking at my bank account and I wasn't sure if I had enough money saved up to make it through the winter. I live here in Colorado, and in order for us to make it through winter, I have to have a lot of money saved up because I still have to pay for equipment, things like my house, car, etc., when I'm not going to be working. And so I was panicked. And I was also like panicking because I had left a high-paying job to come into the concrete world, and I was doing okay. Like I was making okay money, like livable, but I was stuck between a rock and a hard place because I was working literally all the time. Because as you guys know, $100K a month, like it's no laughing matter, especially if you're really involved in the business. Like you have to work a lot. You got to work all the time. And so that was happening to me. Basically, I had to work all the time. And then the problem is because I did it the way that everyone says to do it, I didn't really have that much margin, meaning I didn't have that much money. I couldn't hire help because I couldn't afford it. Like I couldn't afford an office manager, a project manager, things like that. And so I was stuck in like a rock and a hard place in the sense that I didn't really have a clear way to grow, and I basically had a business that owned me. I didn't own my business. Basically, I was a slave to my business. I had to keep putting in all these inputs, like hours and work and time and attention, or the business was gonna fail and I didn't have the margin to hire people. So, a lot of people even out there on the internet right now, like there's literally other concrete coaches out there, and when I see their videos, it literally makes me cringe and wanna cry because what they're teaching people to do is what everyone thinks is the best way. Hey, I'm gonna get into business. I'm gonna run some Facebook ads, get really, really cheap leads. I'm gonna sell work that's pretty competitive. I'm gonna out-compete my customers based on service, and that's how I'm gonna grow. And does that get you to $100K a month? Yes, it does. Does it get you to $100K a month where you're profitable, where you actually have money to afford a business that doesn't need you every second of the day? No, it does not. And that is kind of why I didn't really want to make this video to begin with, because how do you make a video where there's multiple ways to do it? But that's why I wanted to preface this whole entire video with my story and what happened to me. And also when I'm going through and I'm telling you guys certain things that I'm telling you guys, it's going to be certain things that you've probably never heard before. And I want you to realize that the reason is I had a choice. Basically live the model that everyone else lived and basically have an okay life. I mean, would you guys really say that most concrete business owners' lives are amazing? Not really. Like most of them, they have to work all the time. Their business doesn't really grow or it takes decades. Like there's so many problems with the quote unquote normal way to grow a concrete business. And so I basically had to break everything, rebuild it in a totally different way. And so a lot of this stuff is completely different than what you hear in other places. But if you hang on to the end, I promise it'll make so much more sense as far as how all of the pieces of the puzzle fit together and why I'm recommending this. And also to show you guys, I'm literally built a fake business model showing you how much money you could make at the end, making like $250,000 a year, basically running a relatively small concrete company at 1.2 million. It's going to be pretty dang cool. So with all that being said, I wanted to preface this video. I want to prepare you guys for what is to come, and I wanted to do that before I got into teaching. But with that being said, now that that's done, let's get into the fun stuff. Hey, quick time out with this video. If you love the content, but you're getting a little bit overwhelmed because there's so many different pieces, that is exactly what my business, Contractor CEO, is for. We partner with other concrete businesses on their marketing, helping them out with systems, sales, you name it, basically everything it takes to run a concrete business, we have it. So if you're interested in learning more about how we help people, check the link down below. So step one of scaling a concrete company to $100,000 a month is solving the acquisition problem. If you don't know what acquisition is, it's literally just the combination of marketing and sales, and it's combining it into one word. Because at the end of the day, they're kind of the same thing. And the reason why I put this as step one is because a lot of people, when they first start a concrete company, they think about the product. They think about, oh, what trucks do I need? What tools? What people? What this? What that? And they have this theory that, oh, if I build it, they will come, which I promise you, that is not the way the world works. And maybe it works, but over a very, very, very long time horizon. So if you want to shorten this up, especially, and not take decades, but a year or two to get to $100,000 a month, this is absolutely the first problem that you need to solve. Because newsflash, it doesn't matter who you have on your team, what equipment you have, any of that stuff. If you don't know how to get leads and you don't know how to take a lead to a converted sale, then you don't have a business. At that point, you just have a bunch of stuff. It's kind of like having a bunch of muscle, but you can't use it. It's like you have the potential to push a lot of weight, but you actually can't push weight because there's no gym equipment. Same thing, like you don't actually have the option to exercise your ability to be a company if you're not getting leads and sales. So that is why we are starting with this. And I call it acquisition, which is really just marketing and sales. So let's dive right into it. So phase one, before we could sell people, is marketing. Okay, so that's what we're gonna talk about. And there's a lot of different phases of marketing. Very first and foremost is one customer, one specialty. Basically choosing a niche, and let me explain. And I know this sounds a little bit counterintuitive. Actually, when I first started, I did this totally, completely wrong. And I see so many people making this mistake. And because I've seen it so many times, which is why I'm trying to let you know, but basically it sounds the most logical thing when you're starting and when you're growing, that you want to offer such a wide range of services to a lot of people. And a lot of people are like, no, Tyler, I've chosen my niche and it is concrete. But really think about it. So concrete, does that mean concrete replacement? Does that mean new pour? Does that mean decorative concrete? Does that mean concrete coatings like epoxy? Does that mean mud jacking? Does that mean foundations? Does that mean concrete pumping? Like there are so many different niches even within concrete. So step one is to just choose, what are you gonna do? Are you gonna be a concrete flat work person? That's what I do with some decorative concrete. Are you going to do concrete foundations? And then secondly to that is you have to choose a customer. And there's a big reason why. Because a lot of people, they wanna work for GCs and they wanna work for home builders and they wanna work for homeowners and they wanna do all these different types of customer. But the problem with that is each individual person who could be buying from you actually have different reasons to buy. Like a home builder, they want you to be super cheap and they just line you up with work. You basically give them a cost per square foot and then just go, 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 go. So if you were to build a business focusing on that, you absolutely could, but you would want to keep overhead really low because that's the only way that you can make money. But then servicing residential customers, they take more service, they take more sales, they take more hand-holding, they take more of all of that. But because of that, they're higher margin. And when you start mixing the two, it gets very complicated because you're gonna have multiple pricing models, multiple everything. And I'm telling you, it is unbelievably complicated. So the main benefit that you're gonna get from moving to one niche, one specialty is efficiency. And efficiency goes in a lot of different ways. Number one is crew efficiency. Like for instance, imagine if you are really good at decorative concrete and flat work, but you also do some epoxy. Well, that's great. Cool. So you could have a business right now where it's not really a business. It's basically a job where the business, you are the business at that point, right? But a business is when you can employ other people to do it. So anyways, if you want to employ other people to do, say, for instance, flat work and epoxy, well, those are two totally different skill sets. One person is a concrete finisher. The other person is an epoxy guy. Way different. And so if you actually want to be efficient in the field, which efficiency, if all that really means is you're going to make more money because you get faster. So really, if you choose one job, then your crew can all of a sudden be efficient because they show up to a job, they know exactly what's going on. Step 1, step 2, step 3, they have all the tools. Number 2 is marketing efficiency. So I know this kind of sounds crazy, but the more targeted your marketing is, the more it can speak to each individual person. Say, for instance, what I do is I sell my service to homeowners. So I can make an ad and I can say Northern Colorado homeowners, basically like we're one of the best specialists that can handle exactly what you do. And this is all that we do. Compare that to a very generic ad that's like, hi, this is my concrete company. I do concrete. Call me for a quote. Like one is like, hey, I'm speaking directly to you. The other is so generalist. It's kind of like if you were to get a surgery on your hand, would you go to a hand surgeon or a general surgeon? A hand surgeon. So it will make your marketing more effective. Your lead costs will go down if you could just dedicate your business to one special type of customer, because then that customer will feel like you are talking exactly to them. And then same goes for sales efficiency. So imagine if you're going to be selling different types of work, well, selling a driveway versus selling epoxy versus selling a foundation, they all take different skill sets, right? Foundation is all about reading plans, blueprints, etc. Selling something like residential concrete is more about the actual act of sales, like being really good at talking and getting people to like you. So you're going to be more efficient at sales. And on top of that, you're just going to have more efficient financials because again, your company is just all going in one direction. Imagine a light bulb, right? It is shining light everywhere versus a laser is the opposite. We're directing all energy going this way. So what's more powerful, a laser or a light bulb? Obviously a laser. It's because all of the energy is focused in one clear path. And that is what choosing a niche and choosing a customer does for your business. That is step 1. All right, the next big thing to customer acquisition is lead generation. And again, the reason why I don't like making a lot of videos about leads is because there's so many definitions of leads, how to get them, all of that. But I am going to make a very targeted recommendation for what to do. And I'm not only going to talk about lead generation, I'm going to talk about how to do leads, basically how to get them, the methods that I recommend to get them, who to do that for you, because it doesn't always have to be you. Just remember that when you're running a business, not every little thing has to be done by you. In fact, if you do it that way, that is probably the slowest way to grow. And then lastly is how to afford it. So it's the who, the how, and how to afford it. All right, so first let's start off with just a list of all the ways that you could technically get leads in your concrete company, because I'm telling you there's so many ways, it's actually very overwhelming. So I made a list. So let's just start at the very top. Number 1 is a website, right? And not only having a website, but ranking on search engines like Google, which is through a process called SEO. There's things like direct mail. You have paid ads, and not just only paid ads, right? There's Google ads, there's Facebook ads, Instagram ads, TikTok ads. There's ads on Yelp, there's ads on Nextdoor, there's ads on Houzz, there's ads everywhere. There's paid ads. Social media posting, right? Like doing organic content to gain trust and authority in your local market. You have door-to-door. You could literally just do door-to-door marketing. That is the old way that people used to sell because we didn't have the internet, right? So think of an easy way to get attention is if you just go knock on someone's door. Hi, your driveway is all busted up. Do you actually want to get a quote to replace that? Very easy, right? That actually still technically works. Posting on Facebook groups, yard signs, branded trucks, Google My Business, radio ads, marketing the Facebook marketplace listings, paid lead services like Home Advisor, Angie, and Thumbtack. We have networking. We have door hangers, flyers, referral partners, other platforms like Yelp, Nextdoor, and Houzz. And the truth is, this is what makes everything so complicated. The truth is, all of it works. That's the crazy part. And so I think for a lot of people, they get very overwhelmed because there's so many different things to do. And so obviously in this video, I'm going to start narrowing that down on, in my opinion, the best things to do and also the best things to do for this model. Because for instance, if you were going to be selling, and this is why step 1 is choose a niche, choose a customer, because if you're going to be selling to home builders, for instance, actually doing any type of marketing at all, including branding, actually detracts from your company. Because if someone wants to sub you out, it actually looks very bad if ABC Construction Company sells the job and then Joe's Concrete shows up to do the project. That's actually not what they want. And so this is specifically geared towards selling to residential homeowners because that is by far the highest margin. That is what my recommendation is geared towards. The last thing to note about lead generation before I hop into my recommendation here is all of it helps each other. And that's what I think a lot of people get a little confused is they say, well, what's the best? Is my website the best? Or is truck wraps the best? Or is yard signs the best? Or is Facebook ads the best? What's the best? And the reality is all of it works together. Say, for instance, if you leave out a yard sign and someone checks out your yard sign and then they Google your company and then go to an amazing looking website. And then from that website, you have great content, great all that stuff. Then they go to social media, they check out, oh my God, this company is posting, they look good, their projects are good, they are active. You know, if that were to happen, like what's more effective, that or a Facebook ad and you have no website, no Yelp, no nothing? Obviously, the combination of everything all helps each other, right? Like internet marketing is like an ecosystem. It's not like a one size fits all, and it's not like people don't go other places on the internet. I think what everyone wants internet marketing to be is where someone lands on your website, that is all they ever look at. They don't look at reviews, they don't check out social, but that's not how the world works today. Everything builds on itself, which is part of the reason why I'm going to make my recommendation the way that it is. But so when we start to drill things in, also keep in mind that different types of marketing are going to attract different types of customers. For instance, flyers technically work. And so if you're like, hey, Tyler, should I do flyers? That's kind of like not a great question because it depends on what your goal is. So for instance, in the model that we're trying to build, we're trying to get to $100,000 a month as a concrete company serving residential homeowners a premium product so we can make good margin. So if you were to ask yourself, do flyers work? Yes, technically they work at getting leads, but what type of lead is that going to bring in? Like really think about it. Is your dream customer going to all of a sudden walk to their car, see a flyer, pick it up, and be like, wow, I bet this company does the best work? No. Like, in fact, like a flyer kind of makes you look childish. It makes you look bad. Same thing with certain Facebook ads. And this is where it gets kind of funny because I see everyone, and again, even other concrete coaches out there on the internet, and they're like, oh, you should have a Facebook lead cost no less or no more than $20. But like, you know the way to get a Facebook lead ad for $20 per lead? It's actually very easy. You just say, hi, homeowner, I could do your project and I could do it less for anyone else. And I have this great, amazing promotion that's only happening right now. And so what you got to think about is that's going to bring in a certain type of customer. That's going to bring in someone who wants a deal, maybe they've been shopping around forever. And like the only reason they're actually contacting you is because you promised them a good price, which do you think that you could scale to $100,000 a month that way? Yes. Do you think you could scale to $100,000 a month profitably that way and making a ton of money? Not really, right? Not really. So now you start to see the difference. It's not just about getting leads, it's the right leads. And so can Facebook ads work? Yes. Can they bring in good leads? Yes. Can they bring in bad leads? Yes. It depends on how you set it up. It depends on the messaging of what someone is seeing before they come to you. So here's my recommendation for a company, and keep in mind, not all of this has to happen all up front. It's the best, but it doesn't have to happen. So first and foremost is a good brand. The best customers call a good brand. And what does a good brand really mean? Well, that's certain things like when you have people on a job site, are they in your company's apparel? Yes or no? Like, do they actually have company uniforms? When someone goes to your website, does it look good? Does it speak clearly? Does it show high value jobs? Yes or no? Like, for instance, like Rolex, they don't show ads of crappy watches. They only show ads of great watches. So does your brand give off that feel? Does it give off the feel of we do great, excellent concrete work? Like, does our website look like it was made by your aunt and your cousin? Or does it look like someone, like a professional designed the website and you have professional photos? I would say that that is very important. That is like the foundation, right? Having good brand, which includes branded equipment, yard signs, website, etc. Having a fully optimized Google page, very important, right? Like, on your Google page, is it complete? Does it list all your services? Does it show what times you're open? Does it have tons of reviews? That is another essential. A built out social media. And a lot of people, like, I can't tell you guys how many concrete companies that I get to talk with, and they're newer. And you want to know the number one way to make sure that no one with a lot of money ever calls you is they get to your Facebook page, they get to your Instagram page, and they scroll down like for 2 seconds and they see this company updated their profile picture on 3 months ago and they did their logo 3 months ago. Like, you literally look brand new. And a lot of people aren't even brand new, but because they don't actually use social media, they're not posting on it, they're not active, then even if they're an active company, their presence, their social media presence makes them look like they are not active. And so people get very, very wary of hiring contractors like that. It doesn't mean that they won't hire you, but what are the chances that someone who's going to pay a premium price will hire someone that looks like that? Much less, because you actually have a much less perceived likelihood of getting them the product that they actually want. And next, as part of like the essentials, like the foundation of a good marketing strategy, is I would say community building. And so a lot of people that I know who are really successful, they're well built in the community. And so doing things like networking events, calling other contractors, getting to know people, getting meshed into the community is very, very powerful. Which again, this is also the reason why I'm recommending this strategy. Because do you think that you're going to have time to go to these events, build up your brand, build up your reputation, if the business is demanding you to work 24/7 in your own business because you're doing basically cheap work? It's not cheap, it's just market price. And the answer to that is no, right? You need to have time to do this stuff, which don't worry, I'm going to put all of this together for you here in just a little bit. But it's just meant to be said that doing that is essential. And it's just about who to do it, when to do it, how long it takes. We're going to get into that. The other pieces, that's like your foundation, right? That's what you build everything on. You build it on a good brand, good website, good Google My Business, good reviews, good community, all that stuff. That's your foundation. Then what you build on top of that are, in my opinion, my favorite things are Facebook ads, Google ads, Instagram ads. By far and away, the best ROI, and especially getting to $1 million or $1.2 million in a year. In fact, you probably only have to get really good at one of those, but doing more definitely helps. But you don't necessarily need to get to that level. So that's kind of how it looks. You got your foundational stuff, then you add gas to the fire in the form of Google ads, Facebook ads, Instagram ads. So the next, now that we know what marketing to do, let's talk about who is going to do it. And this is so important. It is crazy. And I made this mistake, and almost everyone makes it when they first start, is you think of, you're like, man, I'm new in business. I got to save costs. I got to basically pinch pennies. I got to not spend money because like I'm new and you're unsure yourself. You're not sure if it's going to work. And I get it. That's exactly what I did too. But the problem is, what I noticed that a lot of people do is we always weigh the risk of what we're going to invest and how much money we could lose as far as like that investment. Say, for instance, if I was going to spend $5,000 on marketing, I could lose $5,000 in marketing. But I had a mindset shift recently. Not recently, probably like 3-4 years ago. One of my mentors asked me, he said, so Tyler, what's the most expensive thing in your business? And I was like, well, labor. And he's like, no, that's not actually it. And I was like, oh, well, I don't know, materials. And he's like, that's not it either. I was like, equipment. And he's like, nope. And I was like, no, dude, I'm telling you, like, those are for sure my top 3 expenses: labor, materials, equipment. And he's like, Tyler, you're missing something. And I was like, what? Like, what is it? And he's like, are you currently making $1 million a year? And I was like, no. And he's like, so if you knew how to make $1 million a year, do you think that you would do it? And I was like, well, yeah, of course. I'm a really hard worker. Like, if I knew how, yeah, I would do it. And so then he's like, so your ignorance of not knowing how to make $1 million a year is costing you $1 million. And it really sank in. And that's when I realized that, and especially in this context, in marketing in particular, everyone is always worried about spending the money and not seeing a return, which I get it. You should be worried because that can happen and it is risky. But in my opinion, no one actually thinks about the other side of the coin, which is if I don't spend money in marketing, or if I have my cousin do it because she's technical and she could work on a computer, like, what is the risk of that not working going to cost you if your cousin does it, if your aunt does it, if you hire some Indian on Fiverr who doesn't actually know concrete? It is very high. So what I would say is like, I want to preface this with more than likely, we want to shortchange this step, which this is the first step of everything. If you don't have your marketing right, either you're gonna get the wrong leads, not enough leads, like something bad's gonna happen, and then all the rest of the business all comes crumbling down because you're not gonna be able to charge the prices you want, you're not gonna be able to do the volume you want, nothing will work. So this is very, very important. So just consider both sides of risk. The risk of doing money and the risk of not spending money and thinking that you are some magical unicorn that can do concrete and marketing and be the best accountant and be the best everything. I'm telling you, I used to think that about myself, and business humbles you very fast. So ideally, you just learn that before you have lots of mistakes. Cool. So let's get into the who. So there's different types of marketing. So like we said, there's websites, there is brand, there is stuff like that. There's certain things where it probably makes sense to hire an expert, like a website, for instance. That is something where you invest in it once and it works for you 24/7, selling your services for years and decades and all of that to come, right? And so that makes sense to hire someone. There's other things like, for instance, social media, where I see people trying to outsource that. I see people trying to hire a company to do that, but the company really has no context of what is actually happening inside your company. And so how can they make your social media look great when they're not the ones on the job site? They're not the ones getting photos. They're not the ones doing video. So there's certain things that you should absolutely be doing. So I wanted to preface all that, and I have my recommendation. Number one, if you can't tell, when my business fully started growing is when I hired a marketing company and I stopped trying to do things myself. And don't worry, that's why next up, we're gonna talk about how to afford that. But you wanna hire a marketing company. And you wanna think about, okay, not just any marketing company, because the thing is, like, there's tons of people who say that they can do marketing. And it's just like in concrete, right? Like, you're gonna get someone who says, oh, I can do your driveway for $1,000. And then if you're a really quality concrete guy, you're like, dude, my materials are like $3,000. So how are you gonna do it for $1,000? Like, it doesn't make sense. And we as concrete guys, we realize that there's different levels of the game. There's someone who's a novice who doesn't know what they're doing and they have a crappy product. They're not going to charge very much. And there's someone who's an expert and they wouldn't get out of bed for at least $5,000. And so when you are finding the right marketing person, just realize that there is unique skills that are involved just with concrete companies. That is the whole reason why I started Contractor CEO. Obviously, if you guys wanted to work with a marketing company, you know, what better than someone who's actually built the model on running a highly successful residential business who also does marketing for concrete guys. Obviously, if you're interested, the link is down below. But whoever you work with, whoever this marketing company is, what the things you want to hire them for are, first and foremost, like, especially if you're newer, you need cash flow. You need jobs coming in now. My recommendation, first and foremost, is to hire someone who knows what they're doing with ads, say, for instance, like Facebook ads, and go out, get a bunch of high quality leads, sell those leads, do the thing that I'm about to teach you, which is called client finance acquisition, get cash flow, and then invest in long-term marketing, things like website, things like branding, yard signs, apparel, all of that. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter if you need a company to do all that stuff. If you can't afford it, you can't afford it, and that's totally fine. So you start with ads, you sell jobs, invest that cash flow back into the business, hire a company, build out a website, do your reviews, get your Google business page, the foundational stuff, have them run your ads. And then what you are going to be responsible for is community building, networking, doing things like social media content. That is the whole reason why you offload so much of your marketing, because do you think you could do all of the best paid ads and the best social media and the best website and the best everything? No, like, you could only be so good at certain things. And so if I were to recommend what things to be good at, it is getting out in the community, actually meeting people, shaking their hand. I know, like, unfortunate that we actually have to get out in the community and make connections. I know, right? And doing things like social media, filming yourself on job sites, talking about what you're doing, educating your client, becoming a local celebrity. Those are the things that only you should be doing, at least in the very beginning. Over time, we could talk about different ways to do that, but to get to $100,000 a month, that is a guaranteed winning strategy. If you can do that, and then you have a partner who's doing the technical side, the website, the ads, etc., that is everything you need to get to $100,000 a month. All right, next up is client finance acquisition. And this is how to afford marketing. And what I realize when a lot of people say that they can't afford marketing, it means that they actually don't have a way to reliably invest cash and get paid more cash before the job has even started That's called client finance acquisition. So it's very simple. Step one is obviously get leads. Obviously, you need to get leads that you could sell for a high profit margin. And the high profit margin is the very important part, because let me explain here in just a second. So on average, the clients that I work with inside my coaching program, my marketing, and all that, the people who I've helped scale up successfully, they're charging anywhere between 20 and 30% more than the competition, which don't worry, that's why we're getting to sales here in a second, because I'm talking about how to actually do that step by step. But that's step number 3. So you get leads, you use an offer to make yourself look better, you're going to sell the jobs for 20 to 30% more than your competition, you are going to collect 20% of the job as a down payment to get scheduled. Granted, I'm not a lawyer, seek legal advice. Some states, like California, only allow you to do $1,000. But with that being said, if you're more profitable, all you have to do is sell a job, complete it, get the cash. Now all of a sudden you have a bunch of money. It's not that complicated. So yeah, you sell a job for 20% more than your competition. You collect 20% as a down payment. You use that money to pay off the money that you invested in marketing, and basically you enjoy getting paid to sell concrete work. So let me give you guys a quick graphic to explain that. Let's just say most people sell a 1,000 square foot driveway for $10,000. However, because you are implementing the right marketing system, the right sales system, you could sell that same job for $12,000. And you could spend, say, upwards of like $1,500 in marketing. So you go from $10,000 up to a $12,000 project. You're going to spend $1,500 in marketing, but because you're getting a 20% down payment check, that's $2,400. So when you get that down payment check, you pay off the $1,500 in marketing, and you're left with $900 to reward you for your effort of selling that concrete job. And you still have $10,000 left to collect when you actually do the concrete project itself. So that is really the key. That's why some companies can scale up so fast. It's simply because a lot of people, their margins are so slim, they really can't afford much in marketing. But the second you have a really high profit job to sell, well, now you could go sell it, and it's going to pay for your marketing costs immediately. Money comes back into your bank. You're never really out on cash, because if you just buy ads on a credit card, you go sell a bunch of jobs, collect down payments, pay your credit card off, you basically are going and printing concrete jobs on demand. And that's the power of client finance acquisitions. In my opinion and in my experience, the people that I've worked with and they've nailed just this one thing, like just this, they've been able to basically double, triple, get up to 100K a month, like immediately, like so fast, to the point where the problem is not getting the work. The problem is doing the work, which don't worry, we're going to talk about that here in a little bit. But that's why, to me, man, if you just do this, you have the right marketing and you're decent at sales, like, why would you not be able to scale to a reasonable amount basically right away? And the answer is really no reason. So that is the who to do marketing, right? We talked about that. The how to do marketing, basically what aspects of marketing you're actually going to do, and how to afford it is a client finance acquisition. So now what we're going to talk about is when you get a lead, what do you actually do to turn that lead into a sale? So we're on to phase number 2. So once we get a lead, we get a phone call. How do we actually take that? What's the best way for someone who is willing to spend more, right? Someone who's looking for a premium service. How do we get them to actually give us money? Which that is a lot harder than what a lot of people think, because when a lot of people are selling concrete jobs, and it was funny because when I first got into concrete, I was like, man, I'm the best concrete salesman ever, because everyone was giving me money and it's like, I'm amazing at sales. But when I realized that the only reason that people were giving me money is because I was so competitive in price, then that really takes away from how good you are at sales, because really the key to sales is where you could sell a product for more than the competition. And that is exactly what we're going to be talking about. So first and foremost, I want to mention, this is also the reason why phase number 1 is marketing, because I want you to look at marketing and sales much like golf, okay? And marketing is the drive. So that's like, how close can I get to the ball to being in the hole on hit 1? And ideally, if your marketing is good, it sets it up so all you have to do in sales is a little mini putt. Okay, that's why it works together. Because if your marketing is bad and you shank it and now you've got a golf ball way over on the side and you have to somehow get someone from here all the way over to here, that is very difficult to do. So that's the importance and the power of good marketing versus just getting a lead. Okay. And with that being said, we are going to go into sales, because your number one job, in your business, by far and away. You could hire out marketing. Yes, there's marketing that you need to do yourself. You could hire out the crew. You could hire good concrete guys. You could hire good accountants. You could hire good everything. But to get to $100,000 a month, the number one thing that I've seen people who that is what they are focusing on in their business is sales. Like that is their job. They are selling machines. Other people are getting them leads. Other people are doing the projects. Other people are doing the accounting. Other people are doing all that stuff. But they are killer salesmen. So realize that this is by far and away the most important skill for you to develop if you want to get to $100,000 a month. So first off, how do we sell jobs for more than our competition? And we build value in our sales process above what our competitors do. And when I first started in concrete, when people told me that, it actually really pissed me off. Because it's like, they would just say that and they would end it with a period. They'd say, build more value, period. And I'd say, what the hell does that mean? Like, what does it actually mean to build value? And I didn't get it. Well, because I understand it a lot better now, I'm going to break down how you actually build value in your sales process, okay? So number one, we are going to talk about just easy hacks that you could do to basically build up value. So number one is to sell an offer, not sell a product. And the best way that I could illustrate this is, let's just say that you're doing a driveway. I win so many driveways from my competitors because you know what all of their contracts say? All of their contracts say, I do concrete, I don't do dirt work, and I'm not responsible to fill the voids left by my form boards. Like, okay, and I get why you wouldn't want to do that. But also, now if I come along and I say, hey, I'm gonna do your driveway, and on top of that, like, because when we're doing your driveway, we tend to mess up the rocks and the dirt around it, I'm actually gonna throw in doing some really light landscaping for you on the sides to clean all that up. Because when you're done, you probably want the whole thing to look good, not just the driveway, right? And the customer's like, oh, well, yeah, I do. And so if I can offer driveway plus light landscaping that in reality takes like 1 hour tops for my cleanup guy to do, like, is that a lot more valuable? Yes. So how you make an offer is you add on other really tiny little things to make it a lot more valuable. So I could say, cool, I am going to do your house. I'm going to do your patio. And because a lot of times when we're doing stamp, we have to throw powder release. It gets pretty messy. We plastic everything. But just to sweeten this deal, when I come back to power wash, I'm going to power wash your whole entire house in the back. So that way all the cobwebs, like your whole entire house will look spotless. See, that is how you make an offer. Is that going to take you a little bit more time? Yes. Is it going to take you that much more time for the amount of value that you build? No, because people don't want to do anything. They don't want to do anything. They don't want to think about anything. They don't want to do anything. And so when you could think about these tiny little things where you could say, I'm going to do your stamp patio and I'm going to throw in blah. That little blah, even though it's really easy for us, it's a huge pain in the butt for homeowners. So that's how we go from selling a product to an offer where we're combining multiple things all for one really good experience for the customer. Another way that you could build value is through pre-framing. And so when someone calls us in our concrete company, it's funny because even though I know for a fact most people haven't heard of us due to our like awards and stuff that we have in the marketplace, then it doesn't really matter. This is how we answer the phone. We say, hey, hi, cool, thanks for calling. Hey, because we're trying to collect some data for our business just really fast, we want to ask how you heard about us. Did you hear about us in the NoCo magazine? And we got rated actually as the top concrete contractor. What does everyone always say? Oh, no, I actually didn't know that. But the reason why I say that is because now it's pre-framed the way that they think about me, even though they did not see me there. But now that they know that I won that, it pre-frames me as being an authority. If you're new and you have nothing like that, it's not a big deal. Just know that when you have something like that, that is another way that you build value. You always want to be not only doing cool stuff, but then you got to tell people about cool stuff. The unfortunate way the way the world works, like even say, for instance, when McDonald's donates, I don't know, $500 million. They might donate $500 million, but they're going to spend $1 billion in marketing telling people that they spent that. Because at the end of the day, if you want people to look at you like an authority, it's not just about doing cool things, but it's about actually getting that message out in the world so people know that you did it. And that is what pre-framing does. Another way to build up value is through scarcity. And so we all have built-in scarcity in our business. Scarcity, all that really means is I have a limited supply, which is true. You, as a concrete contractor, only have a limited supply of projects that you can do. And for some reason, all concrete guys always make themselves seem so available. And I have no idea why. It's kind of like, who is the person who is probably the most desirable to date in high school? Well, it was probably the person who got tons of attention. Like if it was a really pretty girl, there's all these guys asking that pretty girl out. And part of it was like, man, just because all these people like this one person, then the chances they're really cool is very high. So I also want to like them. And so that's called scarcity. So when someone calls us, we always have the tone, we have built-in scarcity. I say, hey, when do you want to get your project done? Things like that. I'm like, cool. Hey, and when do you actually want to get this done? I actually only have room for 5 more projects right now. And this project seems awesome. I would love to work with you. I just want to be honest that like we're getting pretty dang full and we might sell out. That's scarcity. That makes it more valuable. It's the same reason why when I took my wife into Louis Vuitton, even though I was so against it forever, but whatever, she's always wanted one. I took her in, and it was so funny because we get to the sales counter, my wife shows her the purse, and what does she do? The salesperson said, oh my God, I love that purse, and it's the only one we have left in the store. And the reason Louis Vuitton, which is one of the biggest companies ever when it comes to apparel and home luxury or luxury goods, is because they use scarcity. And it was funny because then my wife and I were like, okay, let's think about it. And then we walked outside and my wife was like, oh my God, they only have one of these left. I got to get it. And it was funny because I know that they don't actually have one left. They say that because what it did to my wife is it made her think, one, a lot of people want it. And if a lot of people want it, it makes it more valuable. And she doesn't want to lose it because she likes it. So she doesn't want to walk away for an hour, have someone else come get it, and now all of a sudden they say, oh, well, we don't actually have it. That's scarcity. And if you want to build value, then use that in your own business too. Another way to build value is through guarantees. And so I know, especially in concrete, people shy away from this because we all know that concrete cannot be controlled. And I get that. You can't make concrete not crack. However, there's ways to make it so you could still give a guarantee without guaranteeing everything. Like for instance, in my company, I don't guarantee hairline cracks, but I guarantee cracks that get up to a 1/4 inch wide, and I guarantee that for 3 years. So if a crack does get that wide, then I will replace it. But because I can offer a much bigger warranty on the back end, a guarantee, it makes my offer look way more valuable. Because I say, well, if we use this other company, I might get a year out of my concrete, and then worst case, if everything falls apart, which we know it never does, then I'm screwed. But our customers think like that. And then so they say, man, is it worth it hiring Tyler's concrete company? Because now instead of 1 year, we get triple the amount of time at 3 years. So guarantees can make you be more valuable. That's how you actually sell things for more. And it doesn't just have to be with warranty. You could guarantee anything. You could say, hi, I guarantee that we call everyone back within 1 business day or get 20% off your product, which is funny because if you charge 20% more and another competitor is here, and the absolute worst case is you had to give a 20% discount to sell the jobs for what the competitor was doing if you fumbled the ball, well, like that kind of sucks, but at least you still have a profitable concrete product. But what's funny is you're up here and they're here, and a lot of people, because they're like, oh my God, I just want to work with someone who's going to call me back, because that's a lot of our customers' biggest nightmare is getting into business with someone who doesn't call back. It sucks. So what would they do? Would they rather pay more for us because we promise that we're going to call back? Yes, that's how you build value. All right, last thing to build more value in the sales process. And I know this sounds crazy, but charging higher prices makes you look more valuable. And let me explain what I mean. So if there's 2 bottles of, let's just say beer, because I know a lot of people don't like wine, whatever. There's bottle A and bottle B. And on bottle A, we took off all branding. No one knows what it is. On bottle A, you just write this can of beer is $5. This can of beer is $3. And if you were to ask people which one that they would prefer, given that they didn't actually have to pay for it, people would just choose the more expensive one because they want it more. Because they're like, oh, well, if that one's more expensive, it must be better. And what's funny is when they've done this and they've done double-blind case studies, except they did this with wine, not beer, They had 2 bottles of wine. One was like $50, one was $20. Everyone wanted the $50 one. And when they blind taste tested it, even though it was the same wine, everyone actually said that they liked the more expensive one better. So if you want to look more valuable, then guess what? You can't actually be cheap. I can't tell you guys how many times I lost jobs to more expensive competition when I first started, and I didn't understand this concept because I would say, I don't understand. I do great work. Why did they choose my competitor over me? And then I realized that they just wanted to buy the more expensive option. Like right now, I'm buying a home gym. And for me, I don't want cheap stuff. So I filter out a lot of stuff because I say, well, man, if that's cheap, it must suck. Because that saves me a lot of time. Because like good things are expensive and cheap things are cheap. And I know that doesn't work every single time, but I'm telling you, all of our customers do this. And if you don't charge enough, you literally just look cheap. If you charge extra, you might not win every job, but people will want to work more with you naturally. All right, cool. So now that we know how to build value in the sales process, let's talk about the actual sales process itself. And where the sales process starts is when the second someone calls you, they text you, they fill out a form. And a lot of people, for some reason, they perceive that following up isn't actually part of the sale, which kind of blows my mind because at the end of the day, our customers judging us and they're shopping at all times. So say, for instance, again, if you're going to say that you have great service, but then someone calls you and it takes 3 hours to get back, is that actually great service? Man, it's up to you to decide that. In my company, it's not. And so there are what I call the 4 pillars of lead nurture. You could use this or not use this. It is up to you, but at least you should not be ignorant about it. So this is how we build value and how we sell more jobs just through follow-up and how we actually talk to leads. Pillar number 1 is speed, and that's what we already started talking about. It's not only how fast you get back to someone, say when they become a lead for them, but it's how fast you get back to them every single time. Like for instance, if someone calls and leaves you a voicemail, you get back to them in 30 seconds, that's great. But then let's just say that they're calling to ask you a question about the quote way later in the sales process and you take a day to get back to them, well, that's bad. So speed is always important, always important. It's speed to lead and speed to response throughout the whole entire sales process. The faster you can get back to people, the more that you will be able to sell, the more valuable you look, the more on top of the spot you are, all of that. Speed is good. Number 2, and I know that this kind of contradicts a little bit of what I was saying earlier, but when I say availability, I'm talking about specifically being available for the customer to buy, not saying that, oh yeah, we have limited or unlimited amounts of spots available, because that doesn't look great, but having a lot of availability in the sales process does. And so what does that mean? Okay, let's look at a car dealership, for instance. A car dealership, all of their car dealer sales reps are open and they all work Saturdays. Why do they do that? Because that's when people like to shop. That's when people like to buy. When I go look at things, when you go look at things, you probably get in your car, you go drive, you go shop on a Saturday. A lot of times you're going to do evenings. And so this is the unfortunate reality of business. I totally get it because I don't like working nights. I don't like working weekends. And like I said, you could do with this what you will. But if you want to sell more, the more available that you are when your customer wants to buy, the more likely that you are to sell something. So this includes nights, this includes weekends, this includes all of that stuff. It is up to you, but just know you having a hard line in the sand, being like, I don't do estimates past 5 o'clock at night. Like, man, that might be great for your family life, but it technically hurts your business. And so you will have to decide what is more important, obviously. That is pillar number 2, availability. Number 3 is volume. And so it's not just about volume on first contact, it's volume like following up. And man, it is, the number 1 reason why I love competing in the concrete industry, because 99% of concrete guys don't actually do any type of follow-up at all. And it's funny because so many concrete guys are like, well, if the customer really wants me, then they'll call me. And they get on this high horse and they have this ego about it. But what do you think the absolute biggest companies in the world do? They follow up. Like they call you, they check in, they see how you're doing, they ask if there's questions, they follow up. And so whether you like it or not, the more follow-up that you do, and that includes all the way through the pipeline, all the way basically from a new lead to a sold job, the better. So that is why that is pillar number 3, because the more volume you have, the better. Like for instance, if if you get a lead and then you call them back in 30 seconds, they don't answer, I would shoot them a text in like 15 minutes. Hey, just wanted to say, this is so-and-so with your concrete company name, and I shot you a call, like, do you have a minute to chat? And if they don't respond back, shoot them an email. Hey, like, I'm not sure, like, there might be something weird going on with the phone. I'm following up, blah, 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 blah. A lot of people are like, oh, that makes you look desperate. But I'm like, okay, but if that's the case, then why do all the biggest companies in the world do it? It's up to you. You could decide that you're better than all of the biggest companies, or you could just do what all the biggest companies are doing and you could follow up a lot. Up to you. Number 4 is pre-framing, which we did already discuss, but that is the other big thing within lead nurture. Is it's not only the volume. Like, for instance, when I send out a quote, we text the person and say, hey, your quote is delivered. And then we send them out another text in 5 minutes. And you're like, oh, cool. And I'm not sure if we talked about this or if you saw this, but here's a bunch of our reviews. So that way, when you're comparing our quote, you can see what some of the other people are saying about us. That's pre-framing. I'm force feeding the things that I want the customer to see in front of them. Because then when they see a high price, but they see that I have 100 5-star reviews, now all of a sudden they're like, oh man, a bunch of other people have hired my concrete company and they've been happy. So a bunch of other people have paid this price, so I'm not the dummy who's falling for it, and they've been happy. That's good, right? So you want to implement pre-framing through your sales process in your follow-up. That is good. So those are the 4 pillars of follow-up. Now let's get into the actual sales process itself. Like, what do we do? All right, so next is the actual sales process. So now that we have a lead, we followed up with them, and we finally have a chance to talk to them. There's one big thing that I want to point out that's totally different than most people's sales processes and how important it is. And so let me first start off and say what most people do. And this is what I did too. I'm not trying to poo-poo on everyone else. I did this, which is why I know it's a problem, which is why I know the results aren't great, because I saw it firsthand. Okay, it's not good. And this is how it typically goes. Ring, ring. Hi, I'd like to get a driveway quote. Cool, yeah, I can definitely do a driveway quote. What's your address? So here's my address. What's your name? Cool. How does Tuesday at 5 o'clock work? Basically, you get a lead, and then you set up an in-person estimate. And there is no weird stuff happening in the middle called pre-qualifying, and that is what we're going to talk about first. Because for me, here are my phases. I get a lead before I ever do an on-site. I always do pre-qualifying. And let me tell you about why. Number 1 is we don't want to waste time, obviously. I can't tell you guys how many times that I would go out to a job, I would measure, I would do all this stuff, and I would do the song and dance, and I'd go and I'd write the estimate, and I'd get back and I would send it, and I would be sitting there super hopeful, like, oh man, I hope that I did good, and wondering if the customer was going to choose me or not, only for them to ghost me and never talk to me again. That happened all the time. And I'm sure it probably happens to you guys too, a lot. So number 1 is we don't want to do bids for everyone. Number 2 is realize that people are in different buying phases throughout their journey. So a lot of times when someone calls us as concrete guys, we want to think that they're ready to buy from us right now. When in reality, most people just want help at first. And if you do a good job at this phase, not only will it save you time, but you will build trust and become the most helpful person that they know, and they will call you when they are ready. And let me explain. So a lot of people, they don't just wake up one day and say, oh, I want to drop 10K on my driveway. They think about it over time. Maybe they get really tired of the way their driveway looks, and they're like, oh my God, I just have literally no idea how much this costs. I got to save up for it. I got to do all this stuff. I got to plan. And so they call concrete guys. And where most people go wrong is they just rush out to go give a price. But in reality, what that customer really needs is just a rough ballpark and a rough idea of what to expect. And then you give them a little pat on the butt. You say, hey, I'm going to follow up with you in X amount of time. And then they will be ready to buy. And the other guys were probably too pushy. So this is meant to save you time. It's meant to spend time with the people who are ready to buy right now. And it's meant to be more helpful for people who aren't really ready for a serious sales commitment yet. A lot of people, that's why they don't go to try to buy stuff. Because I don't know about you guys, but for instance, sometimes I just want to go look at a car, but I don't want to actually go look at a car because the salesman is going to be like, oh, you're ready to buy? No, dude, I'm just looking. And so a lot of our customers are just looking. And if you could just help them look instead of trying to force feed them, you will get more sales. People will like you more. They're going to trust you more, and you're going to save time. So here is actually how I pre-qualify, because you also have to do this and be cautious, Because if someone feels like they're being pre-qualified, because if you answer the phone and just go, hi, yeah, what are you looking for? Oh, a driveway. How big is it? Yeah, you're looking at like $10,000. Like, it's very obvious what you're trying to do. It's very obvious that you're trying to weed people out. And if people sense that, they're going to think that you're an ass, and they're not going to want to work with you. So this process is designed to get people to like you and trust you. So here is step one. Also, before we get into this, I just did a podcast on my new podcast, The Concrete Business Playbook. And this was a 40-minute episode, just this, going into this super, super, super in-depth. So right now what I'm going to do is just give you guys kind of like a brief overview and the highlights of it. If you guys want to dive way deeper into this, there's a lot more that you could learn, and I will leave the link for that in the description down below. But step one, we're just going to kind of breeze through at least the top pieces of this, is to clarify their needs. So it's going to go ring, ring. The customer is going to say, hi, I'm looking for a driveway quote. And then basically at this specific point in time, you're just trying to understand what they're trying to do. Cool, yeah, tell me what's going on. What is it with your driveway? Is it cracking? Is it spalling? Do you want to widen it? Like, what is the actual problem? Like, why are you trying to replace it? That's step number one. That is clarifying the problem. Step number two is when you've clarified the problem, now it's about setting expectations for the call. And a lot of people, they don't understand our quote process. And so the customer normally takes charge in the sale because they're confused and they feel awkward. They don't know what's going to happen. And so you'll notice that customers will start kind of demanding things in your sales process. If that's happening, it's because you're not setting expectations. Because when I hear from the customer about what's going on and I can actually help them, then I go into step number two and I say, cool, hey, Jim, I could definitely help you with that. Is it cool if I just kind of lay out what our estimate process looks like and how it works so that way you kind of know what to expect? Jim will say, yes, sounds great, Tyler. Say, cool. So right now what we're going to do, Jim, is I'm going to ask you some questions about not only your project, but also about like just some of the things, the nuances of your project. Because with concrete, and you know this, like it literally turns into a rock. And so when it's all said and done, I don't want you to be sitting there wondering why we didn't do certain things or certain things weren't mentioned. I want to make sure that every stone is unturned. So that way, when you're sitting there at the top of your garage and you're looking down at your brand new driveway, you could look down at it with pride, knowing that it was a job well done and it's exactly what you wanted. So is that okay if I just start out and I ask you some questions about your project, and then based on how specific we get, I should be able to give you a rough ballpark price at the end of this? Jim's going to be like, yeah, absolutely. Because now he knows what to expect. He knows what's going to happen. He's not going to feel weird when I start asking questions because I gave him a reason why I'm doing that. And I laid the groundwork showing him like, hey, don't worry about it, Jim. I've done this about 1 billion times. And if you just follow these steps, at the end of it, you're going to be left with something that you want. So that's the whole purpose of step number two. Step number three, now we're moving into the motive. And the motive is where you are building connection with a customer and where you are going way deeper than everyone else. Because let me let you in on a secret. And it's kind of funny because everyone always says, oh yeah, people buy features or they buy benefits, they don't buy products. But I didn't really know how to like say that. And then I realized that the reason that we don't know how to like necessarily say that or how to present it is because we have to ask the customer what is important to them, and then we can like basically talk about the benefits that they want. Let me give you some examples. So we just start out with questions. Like, let's just start out with this question. Have you ever done a project like this before? And again, if you guys want a whole copy of this, link down below. And if you put in your email, I will send you this whole entire sales script so you guys can kind of see. And I have it broke down. It's like 10 pages long, pretty dang in depth. But I'm going to say, hey, have you ever done a project like this before? So what I'm trying to do when I'm asking that is I'm trying to understand if they've had any good or bad experiences in the past. And if they've had bad experiences, I'm trying to bring out that pain. Because again, I don't know what benefits to talk about because I don't want to bore my potential customer into something that they're not interested in. And then also I'm trying to use this to gauge how serious are they? And are they really ready to make a decision to move forward? And let's just say that Jim comes back and he says, yeah, I've actually done a project like this before. Then I can dive a little bit deeper. I say, cool, what were some of the things that you liked about that project in the past? Like, tell me about some of the things that you were like, oh man, like I really enjoyed that. And Jim will say, yeah, like the product looked good, this, and that. And I say, cool, so then tell me about some of the things that didn't go well. And they'll think about it and they'll say, man, you know what? Like, it kind of irked me because when they did my driveway last time, there was all this splatter on the sides and they didn't pick it up and it kind of looks like garbage. See, now you have a benefit that you could actually talk about with the customer because you've uncovered a pain. But what you don't want to do is just go start listing out all of these benefits. You want the customer to feed you with the ammo that you need to close the deal down later. So that is the whole reason why we're asking questions like this now. Also, if they've never done a project like this before, you could start to gauge their level of experience, and you could offer things like, cool, so do you need to know anything about concrete, etc. So that's one question. Another question could be, how long have you been thinking about getting this done? And what this question gauges is the urgency of the project. So for instance, like, if someone responds, well, I've been thinking about doing this project for a really long time. Well, now you know that there's one, they probably have a lot more intent because they've done research, they probably got pricing, they're probably a lot further along in ready to choosing someone to buy. So if you say, hey, how long have you been thinking about getting this done? Someone says, man, I've been thinking about this for like a year. You could say, gotcha. Okay, so yeah, you've been thinking about this a while. This is probably something that's been eating at you. What was the main reason that you didn't move forward in the past? Well, now what I'm doing is I'm breaking down, basically like peeling the layers of an onion, right? I'm getting down to the core of what are the problems that I have to overcome to sell them. They're going to say something like, oh man, well, because it could be multiple things. It could be budget, it could be trust, it could be whatever. Let's just say if it's trust. And they're like, I've been working with a lot of concrete guys and I've gotten prices and the price is fine, but I haven't really found anyone that I liked yet. And you're like, oh, okay. So, man, you've already tried talking to like a bunch of people. Like, what have you really saw that's kind of like turning you off? And they might say, well, like what I've noticed is a lot of people, they say they're gonna get me a quote in a day, but it actually takes them 2 days. And I'm like, man, if they can't even get me a quote on time, are they really gonna be able to deliver me a good product? They might say something like that. They might say whatever. It doesn't matter what they say. The key is that now I have ammo to go further. So if they did say that, be like, oh, I gotcha. So yeah, I mean, I totally get that, Jim. Like, you're totally justified to feel like that, because I would feel like that too. But be like, hey, I'll tell you what, like if I were to go through this process with you and I could demonstrate my ability that like I do what I say, I'm going to be at where I say at. Like those are all such high values in my company. I'm actually glad that concerns you, because then you might like a company like ours, because that is something I pride myself on. If I do that, is that going to give me a better chance of winning the job? Jim's going to be like, well, yeah. Well, cool. He's telling you exactly. It's kind of like if you have a wife and you never know how to make them happy because they don't like say, no, you just step 1 is this, step 2 is this, step 3 is this. It's kind of like that, except the customer is giving you all of their cards and saying, hey, I would love to give you money, just solve these pains. These questions that I've developed are designed to get someone to lower that barrier and tell you what they want, so that if you're a good fit, you can sell them. So we have other projects, like what inspired you / motivated you to get started on this project? We ask questions like, okay, who else is excited about getting this project done? And we're trying to figure out who are the key decision makers and what do they want? One person might want price, another person might want looks. And we have to talk to both of them to get the sale. And so the point is, when you are doing this pre-qualifying script, is you're trying to find out all the information that you need. And let's just say that you get all the way through there. You've built up a great connection with the customer. The customer knows that we know them better than any of the other concrete people. And keep in mind, when you go to a party, who are the people you typically like the most? It's not the person that comes up to you and tells you all about themselves, how cool they are, that they're a NASA astronaut and they're the best thing since sliced bread. Probably not. It's probably the person who takes a genuine interest in you. Hey man, do you own a concrete business? That's awesome. Like, how big are you? Oh my God, like that must be stressful. Like, tell me about that, man. Like, what is this like? And someone who's taking a genuine interest in you, you naturally like them because you're like, oh man, this person's cool. They're so nice. The whole goal of this script is to, one, get the customer to give us all that information. But then at the end of it, they're gonna be like, you know what? Tyler and his concrete company, they are cool. They know me. Like, they know all my wants and my desires. Like, they took such an interest, such an excitement in my project. And I promise you, if you do that, you will sell more projects. But now we get into phase 3, which is price anchoring. So now that we've gotten all of our ammo, I know about the job. Now it's time for me to go over price on the phone before I drive all the way out to the project. Because again, like, man, it doesn't even matter if someone really likes you. if your driveway costs $10,000 and they have $5,000 to their name and they have no way of getting another $5,000, then you cannot sell them. That is why this is so important. So number one, what I always do is I start with a price anchor. And the reason why I do that is, again, in psychology. Like if you go car shopping and the car salesman says, hey, what do you want? You say a 4-door SUV. What they should do, if they're a good salesman, is they should take you to the best 4-door SUV that they possibly have. And they say, this is our Tomahawk Trailblazer, and it comes with all these benefits and all these features. And you're like, oh my God, this car is so pretty. It's so beautiful. It's so this, it's so that. And you say, well, how much is it? And they say, well, 150 grand. And at that point, you as a consumer are going to do one of two things. You say, done, go get the paperwork. I'm ready to buy it. Hey, they just sold you a $150,000 car. Or what most likely will happen is you're going to be like, oh, whoa. No. Like, dude, I don't need that. I just need something that gets me from point A to point B, and I like some of the benefits, but I don't need all of them. And so this is how we actually do that in concrete. And the reason why you do that is because then when they go and show you a $60,000 SUV, you think it's an amazing deal, which at the end of the day, a $60,000 SUV is still expensive, but it's cheap compared to the premium. So that's how we do this in concrete. So let's just use that same example with Jim. I say, cool, Jim, hey, like it's been great talking to you, man. I think I've got a great idea of what you want. I'm going to recap everything that we go over. I say, hey, we're on the same page. She's going to say yes. I say, cool. So, hey, I just want to check because, a lot of our customers fall different areas in this range. And from the sounds of it, you just want kind of like a basic driveway. You want it to stand the test of time, but you don't need anything too crazy. But I always like to ask this because I just want to make sure that I didn't, that I'm understanding you correctly. Let's just say, Jim, on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being like a driveway that's like a total dud, which I already know that that's not what you want, and 10 being like a magazine-worthy driveway. Like that's going to go on the front page of the home decor magazine. It's everything. It looks good. It's this, it's that. It's probably like a $50,000 driveway. Where would you say that you're at on a scale of 1 to 10? And I threw in that number, 50,000, nonchalantly. That's the point. Because I want Jim to think of that, oh my God, my driveway can cost $50,000. Number one, maybe you've built up so much excitement, and Jim's like, yes, I want my driveway to look like a magazine-worthy driveway, and that is exactly what I want. Well, congrats, you've just sold a $50,000 driveway. But more than likely, what's going to happen is he's just like, oh, whoa. No, like I don't need that, Tyler. I don't need that. But I also don't want to be a 1. Like, what's something kind of like in the middle? I was like, yeah, cool. So I understand that, Jim. Like, I figured that's what you didn't want to be, but I don't, like, again, I don't want to leave any stone left unturned. I figured I would at least offer it to see if that's what you're wanting. So for what you're expecting, I'm more thinking that your driveway is going to cost 15 grand. And then I shut up. And because I gave that big price first, and then I came down to what my actual price is going to look cheap. It's going to look affordable, even if it's more than other concrete companies. And so that is a sales psychology that I use. And now Jim is going to come back to me and he's going to say one or two things. He's going to say, oh, good. That's awesome. Like, that's exactly what I was hoping to hear. Let's move forward. And then we'll move into the next phase. But what the opposite of that is Jim could still say, oh man, really? He's like, I was kind of hoping it would be 7,500. And now congrats, because you didn't just go through 2 hours of driving out, measuring, doing all these things with someone who you liked, and you guys connected, and you did everything right, and they just simply have misaligned expectations on price. You filtered them out, which is good. Also, it doesn't mean you give up when someone says no. There's still a lot of strategies, and we go through that in our coaching program of exactly how you overcome that, because it's pretty deep. Like, it's not like this is like a one-size-fits-all answer. This is a very in-depth skill. But at that point, at least you know where someone sits. And so if they say no, we try to fix them. We try to do price objections. We try to do that stuff. But we're just going to assume like they said yes. So now I move on to phase 4, which is confirming commitment. And so what confirming commitment is, so a lot of people, they might say yes. They might say, yes, that price sounds great. Like, let's move forward. But even if they say yes, what you have to realize is a lot of people have egos and they want to replace it. Because if you just built up this great connection with this person and they like you, you like them, I know this sounds counterintuitive and crazy, but people are like this. Instead of them telling you that they're broke and they don't have money for this project, they would soon just have you come out and do the in-person estimate because they don't want to tell you no because they're broke. So that is exactly what step 4 is for, because they don't want to be embarrassed. So this is what I say. I say, cool. So Jim, that's awesome, man. It sounds like we're going to be able to make this project work. I can't wait to work with you. This is going to be great. Hey, but before I come out, I just want to make sure. So if I come out and I do measurements and your job is exactly what we expected, are you ready to move forward? Basically, like what I'm trying to say is like, hey, if I come out and give you that price and is exactly what we talked about over the phone, are you ready to move forward? Because at this point, we are going to hear his real answer. Because he's probably, it could go one of two ways. Either he's going to say yes, like, oh yeah, Tyler, no, for sure, man. Like if you come out, the project is, I know we got to work through some kinks, but like if you come out and my project's 15 grand, like I'm pretty good to move forward, dude. Like I'm ready to do this. That's great. Then we can move on to the actual in-person. But if he says something like, oh, well, I don't know. Well, now it's good because, again, we are going to uncover what his problems are, and we're doing it before he ghosts us because we're already on the phone. I say, well, what do you mean? Like, what else? She's like, oh, well, I still got to run it past my wife. Well, now you know that his wife might have the authority. And at that point, before you drive all the way out there, I would say something like, oh, yeah, no, I definitely understand, Jim. Be like, hey, does it make sense? Do you think before I come out and do all these measurements and stuff, if you want to give your wife at least a quick synopsis of what we talked about, make sure that she's on the same page as us. And then if she is, then let's schedule a meeting with all of us. I can answer all of her questions with yours, and then we can move forward. Because what I'm trying to basically do is I'm trying to say, like, dude, before you bring me all the way out there and measure your whole thing, write up this estimate. Like, I'm telling you, the price is probably going to be that. Why don't you make sure that you're ready to go before I do that? Because again, and you guys will see when I'm breaking down the numbers of the business, because I break down everything, like how much of everything you need coming up here in a little bit, there's going to be a lot of leads. And because there's going to be a lot of leads, you can't be spending time with people who would have never hired you no matter what. Because some of the things you're going to be able to talk people into, and obviously not everyone's going to need concrete right now, and that's totally fine. So all we're really trying to do is before we go out, we're trying to get them to confirm, like, hey, Tyler, yeah, you come out, and granted, like, we work through some of the kinks, like, I'm pretty dang ready to move forward. Because now, instead of you spending time all the time driving around all over like a crazy person, you should really only be doing in-person bids with people who already know you, they know about you, they know rough pricing, and they feel pretty dang sure that they're going to choose you before you ever even go out. So that is what my pre-qualifying steps look like. And obviously then, other things to be said, like doing the in-person. I think a lot of you know how to do an in-person, so I'm not going to go fully into depth on that because at the end of the day, you go, you take measurements, you got to look good, you got to have company apparel, you should be in a polo, you should look nice, you shouldn't look like a freaking hobo that you just rolled out of bed. Like, granted, you do all that stuff and then send a professional quote. If you did this pre-qualifying script, I'm telling you, you will be worlds apart from all of the other companies out there because the other companies, they do what we used to do, what I used to do. I used to go out. I didn't get to know my customer. I didn't get to know why they want to do a product. I didn't get to break down them and understand their deep desires and needs of the project. And I just gave them a price. So the only thing they had to compare me off of was a price. And also, not to mention, I didn't do an offer. I didn't do all the other things that we talked about. And so if you do all this stuff in combination, that is the whole reason that now you could all of a sudden sell jobs for more money. A lot of people, they're like, well, Tyler, I can't sell jobs for more money. And I'm like, well, dude, duh, it's because you didn't do all these steps that I just listed out. It's like, that'd be like saying like, dude, I did math and I keep adding 2 + 2 and it's not getting 6. Like, what the hell? It's like, yeah, man, you got to change the recipe. This is how you change the recipe. You do pre-qualifying. You have good marketing. You have a good offer. You use things like scarcity. You do all of this stuff. And if you do all this stuff, well, now you can sell jobs for more money. You see how it works? So that is a recap of what we talked about. We talked about how to get leads, who to get your leads for you, how to afford them. We talked about lead generation. We talked about what to do when you get a lead. How do you follow up with them? What are the 4 pillars of success? We talked about the pre-qualifying script. We talk about all of that stuff. So all of that is exactly how you do it. Now, I'm going to actually hop over to my computer and I'm going to do a screen share and I'm going to show you guys the exact team that you need in order to do this. Then we're gonna talk about financials. We still got tons of good stuff, so make sure you don't go away. But glad we got through customer acquisition. Hey guys, quick break here in this video. I've actually dedicated my past 2 years of my life to learning these systems, not only so I could use them in my own business, but so I can use them to help other people scale their companies too. If this is something that you feel that I could help you with, whether it's marketing, sales, knowing your numbers, whatever it is, just click the link down below to learn more about how I can partner up with you and your business. All right, welcome back into the second part of the video where I'm gonna start going over some of the actual tactics on the back end of the business. And I know that we started with basically how do you get a lead, how do you sell it for more money, all that stuff. Here's the next most important thing, in my opinion, that you have to learn. And it is the who versus how problem of the business. And right now we're gonna focus a lot about the who, because a lot of people that get into business and they, really start thinking, okay, what are all the things that I have to do in business, right? Here's like the major functions. They're like, okay, how do I get leads? How do I take that lead and how do I sell it? Okay, I got to do the actual concrete work. I got accounting. I got project management. I got to hire and manage people, vendor management. I got all kinds of stuff that needs getting done. And what I typically see is the owner thinks that they have to do all of these, which is absolutely not true. It is absolutely not true. So this stage or this part of the video, I'm going to talk about the most successful people that I've seen. What are the owners actually doing? Like the people who scale to $100,000 a month, what does their day look like? Does their day look like doing mostly vendor management? Do they do mostly project management? Do they do mostly concrete work? Like, what do they do? And then if they're not doing some of this stuff, it doesn't mean it doesn't get done. It just means who is going to do it, okay? So we are going to dive into this stage so you can get an idea of who do you need on your team, how many people do you really need to do $100,000 a month, and who are some of the ancillary partners who you should have? And then most importantly, what should you be doing? Like, what should your day look like? How do you know if you are following the right path or the path of someone who maybe is going to get to 100K a month, but at the end of the day, you're not going to have that great of a business in the sense that you're just going to be working all the time. Don't get me wrong. Do you need hard work? Absolutely. But some of these are higher value than others, and you as the owner should be doing the highest value ones for the business to bring in money, okay? Again, if you want to look at this as a business, not as a passion or not as being an artist, this is the way, in my opinion, that you do that. Okay, so let's scroll over here. So first, let's start with you, okay? The main things that you should be focusing on are partner management, certain aspects of marketing, which we're going to get into, sales, which I'm obviously going to get into, project management, and hiring and managing a team. And again, we're going to get into all this stuff, okay? So first and foremost, why did I emphasize sales? Why did I put sales as being bigger? And it's very simple. Because if you are going to have a successful company, the most important thing that you could be doing for your business is selling, is generating revenue. Because I promise you, all this other stuff, none of that other stuff matters if you don't sell. That's why we spent so long on the marketing and on the sales portion, because as long as you could do this, don't get me wrong, is it unbelievably helpful if you know how to do, say, concrete work? Absolutely. Yes, you should. You should know what you're selling. But have I seen people who don't know anything about concrete, but they're amazing at sales, outperform people who are great at the actual concrete work itself? Yes, all the time. I see it all the time. In fact, sometimes when people are too good at the concrete work, they actually suffer in business because people tend to do what they're best at, right? And so if you're really good at concrete work, it might feel uncomfortable to do some of this other stuff because you know that you're good here, okay? But let's go into all of the things that you should be doing. And then we'll be going into all the things that other people should be doing. And what's funny is even though you'll see, you're missing a couple key pieces. You're like, oh, well, where's my ads within marketing? Where's my website? Like, oh, wait, so is this graphic, am I not actually doing the concrete work? And you notice that there's a lot of things that you're not technically doing. But even though you're not doing those, look at all the other things that still need to go with the business. And we'll get into that. And we're about to get into, I say that where we start is right here. Because you guys will see. What I recommend is you are more like a project manager. And part of being a project manager is you have to hire and manage an actual team that does the concrete work for the company. Granted, like I said, will it help if you know how to do this and you could hop in if need be and help the crew? Yes. Do you have to have this? No. But is it helpful to know how to do this? Absolutely. But the thing is, because you bring in so much more value for the company, bringing in sales, doing things like getting your brand out there, right? It makes more sense. Like a lot of people, they're like, when they find out how fast we grew, they get really perplexed. They say, well, how did you grow so fast? And one of the blessings that I had from the very beginning is my strong suit was these two, sales and marketing. And so I basically went to this right away, okay? And I see a lot of other people where they take years and years and years to do this. But here's how to structure a $100,000 per month concrete company. Number one is you need a great foreman. And that foreman should be someone who you can depend on, someone who you trust, someone who is very, very, very good at the craft. And I know you're probably sitting there thinking, you're like, Tyler, yeah, that sounds great. But like, how do I actually find someone like this? Number one, you have to pay them well. And don't forget that the very next stage of the video, I'm going to be breaking down all of the financials, including what to pay people like this, right? And like, are you sure that you're still going to make money even if you pay someone really good money to be a good concrete foreman? The answer is yes. Okay, so stay tuned. I will line up all the financials after this. But you need a great foreman. That person should be paid very well. Like for me, when I was first starting, say for instance, my concrete business, I was lucky because I had my father-in-law. Granted, he made $85K a year, which a lot of you guys are like, oh, I want to pay my concrete foreman, I want to pay him $20 an hour. I'm like, no, man. Like the person who you want, they are going to have a lot of opportunity elsewhere. All of your competitors are going to be fighting for this person. And so you are going to have to be willing to pay a lot. That could be $35 an hour. It could be potentially up to 40. It could be 30. It depends on your area, right? Like if you live in Albuquerque, New Mexico, this might be like 30 to 35. If you live in California, this might be 35 to 45. And every area is a little bit different. But you need to have someone that you could trust because look at all the things that you have to be doing. And again, you should be spending the majority of your time on sales and back-end stuff, which we're going to get into. So how even a lot of people are like, oh, Tyler, I could do all of this, including the concrete work. Yeah, that's fine. But there's a big difference between doing sales and being amazing and great at sales. There's a big difference, right? It's the same thing as doing concrete work and being amazing. To be amazing, you have to be focused, right? And you can't be amazing at really anything if you're scattered and all over the place. So this model, it gives you the ability to be in the back end and still there, right? You could still manage and be at the job site. And we're about to get into that, like what the project management actually looks like. But you need this person that you could trust on to manage your crew while you're not there. And then what I've seen is you really just need the foreman and 3 concrete guys underneath that foreman, okay? And this foreman should be the one who's mainly responsible with managing these 3 other people. Granted, do you need to have a connection with them? Yes. Do you still need to be a manager to them and a leader? Absolutely. But who's the one that's actually giving the day-to-day instruction of these 3 guys? It's this foreman, okay? So let's move on. That's how you actually do the concrete work. You on the outside, you could jump in on occasion, but you really need to have a great foreman, and he needs to lead a crew of 4 total, including himself, okay? Because what you're gonna be doing as far as the work side on the back end, the project management, is you're gonna line up the crews on the job sites. You're gonna give them job packets. You're gonna make sure that this foreman has what he needs, right? And to do the job successfully. And part of what you're gonna do is you're gonna do a walkthrough with the foreman. You're gonna give him a job packet. You're gonna set time expectations. You're not gonna get mad at your foreman because he's taking too long. When you line someone up on a job, you have to give them like, hey, we have 1 or 2 days or whatever to do this. Obviously, it has to be realistic, but you have to give them time expectations. You should be the ones mainly scheduling the material, okay? Basically coordinating the back end to make sure that a lot of this is going as efficiently as possible, okay? And then on the customer side, again, if this foreman is mainly responsible for the actual work itself and you want the product to be good, sometimes this customer piece actually gets in the way of that, because we all know customers can be kind of needy. They can be a bit of a pain in the butt, but that is what you are there for, is you're trying to make your foreman's life easy as possible by giving him all the resources that he needs. Hey, here's everything you need to be successful, and you're gonna handle everything on the back end. You're gonna handle the customer communication, the scheduling, the invoicing, the change orders. At the very end of the job, you're gonna be sending out the review link. You're basically the one that's kind of coordinating. Think of yourself more as the conductor, like a train conductor, on the back end, making sure all the pieces of the puzzle fit together and all of this runs efficiently, okay? And that's why a lot of people, when they are doing the concrete work itself, and this is 90% of their day, this is like the biggest thing by far that I see smaller concrete business owners struggle with, is because they do this, all this other stuff suffers. They don't send out invoices on time. Their scheduling sucks. Their communication is not good. They forget change orders. They aren't organized. They have all these problems. And if that's you, don't feel bad, because look at all the stuff, and then on top of that, all the stuff that we're about to get into. How are you supposed to do all this stuff good if this is your job? Because this is a full-time job just itself, just concrete work. Concrete work is hard, right? And it's time. It's a lot of time. And so, man, if you want any type of long-term success and you want a business that can pay you when you're not there on occasion, you could take a vacation, things like that, you have to be structured more like this, okay? All right, so sales. We obviously spent the whole portion of the video talking about sales, so we're not gonna relearn all this stuff, but just know your biggest role in your business by far is selling jobs. Okay. Next thing is marketing. There's certain aspects of marketing that you should be doing. There's also certain aspects of marketing that you should not, which we're going to get into here in a second. But a couple things. Because you are not focusing on this, you are going to have extra time, which is good. But we are going to use that time. We're not going to sit home and be lazy. We're going to work our ass off still. But what are some of the other things that you should be doing, right, to generate income for your business? And number one, it's things like networking events. I know people hate that. They're like, oh my God, Tyler, I hate doing that. I get it. It's not like it's fun. Like, guys, we're not doing this for fun. It's kind of like we don't brush our teeth because it's fun. We do it because we have to. Because, well, we don't have to, but you really should, right? Like, you really should. And I guess this is kind of like the same way. Do you have to do this stuff? Absolutely not. But should you for a healthy business? Absolutely. So networking events, you're going to go and meet other people in the industry. You need to get your name out there. And yes, is doing things like digital marketing important, like Google ads and Facebook ads and all that stuff? Yeah, absolutely. And we're going to get into that. But, you know, the most successful people that I've seen, they are doing the digital stuff in combination with getting out in the community. They're getting known. They're meeting people. They're having people meet them. They're actually getting out there shaking hands. And even though these aren't super fruitful in the moment, as in you're going to go spend a couple hours at a networking event, you probably won't get much out of it. But what this really does is it has a huge network effect over time, right? And I think what happens is a lot of people, they do things like these networking events. They don't get something immediately, and then they never go back because they're like, well, that wasn't worth it. But the thing is, like a lot of things in life, is just because it didn't provide you fruit on the first try, if you kept going, and I'm not talking about often, I'm saying go to like one of these a month, one of these a week. Obviously, the more the better. But the more that you get out in your community and you extend that over a long time horizon, like a year, you will be shocked how many leads just your network will provide you. Okay? And they're better leads because people know you. You have a face. They know your kids. Like, they know your life. And of course, people are going to like you more if they know you more. That's how you do it. Same thing with these referral partners. This is kind of the same thing, but a lot of these referral partners, just like other contractors, they don't go to networking events. So for very specific types, let me actually just write this. For very specific types of contractors, let's just say pool builders. Let's just say landscapers. We're going to say things like pole barn builders, all that stuff. These guys are around our type of work all the time. And they need, a lot of times, someone like us who they could either refer out work or sub out work. And instead of being lazy and just waiting for them to get so frustrated with their existing relationship or needing someone, ideally, you would spend about, say, 2 to 3 hours a week, not a ton of time, but where you actually go through, this is what I do. Pool builders near me. You literally just go through and you figure out, okay, who are some of the people who are close to me? And I'm going to call them and I'm going to start making a connection with them. And I'm going to ask them if there's anything that I can help them with. Okay? Like, it's not, at the end of the day, guys, it's not that complicated. This doesn't need a ton of time, but you need to be getting your name out there manually to these people who can refer you out work. Is this necessary? Again, no. But will it help? Especially in the long run, yes. Like, for instance, I have a pool builder. Their name is Blue Water Pools. And what's funny is, look at how small they look. Look at how small they look. That's insane. These guys send me about $200K of work per year. Actually, speaking of this, right here, I don't know if you guys could see it, but this is a big old stamp patio. Actually, we did this job too. This is a big old stamp patio here on the back end. Just that job alone was $100K. And they sent me that job. We did this job too. They just sent me that job because when they do this pool, the customer still needs to get the concrete pool deck done. And they're a pool company. They're not a concrete company. And so that is why I'm purposely reaching out to them to establish these relationships. Over time, this could be the literal $100,000 a month, just this alone, and just this alone. So all the other stuff is just icing on the cake, right? Lastly is social media. And when I say social media, I'm not specifically talking about social media ads. I'm not talking about Facebook ads. I'm not talking about boosting a post. I'm not talking about things like that. I'm talking about literally you being the one to snap photos and building a brand around your business. And again, I've seen people build up $1 million businesses off each of these things just by themselves. And so imagine if you could spend, say, 3 hours a week doing this, 3 hours a week doing this, 3 hours a week doing this. I promise you, over time, this is how you build a successful business. Granted, again, these are all long-term things. And you'll notice that's a theme, right? Like, none of these just happen immediately. But say with social media, this should just be posting about jobs. It should be answering questions for your customers. And you should be, like, ideally, you need to have your face on camera. Because again, you're trying to build a personality of a brand. You're not just trying to be empty. Like, literally just pulling out your cell phone, recording yourself, and being like, hey, this is my job. Here's what we're doing. This is what the customer asked for. These were the problems and the hurdles, and this is how we're going to fix it. Like, basically follow us to see the end result. Just things like that. This doesn't have to be complicated, guys. Like, that's the best part about concrete. We're not competing with brands like Apple. We're not competing with these big, crazy companies who have crazy marketing budgets. You don't have to do anything that wild. Just get out there and be active. If you're doing it and you're active and you're taking action, I promise you results will come. Last thing you're going to be doing is partner management, okay? Because there's still all of these other things that have to happen in the business But it doesn't necessarily mean, again, that you have to be doing it. For instance, a lot of people, we'll start with accounting. I can't tell you how many times that I meet someone and they get into trouble because they didn't want to spend, like a good accountant team who's going to do bookkeeping, tax prep, tax planning, payroll. And you're looking at like $1,000 a month, $1,500 a month. And again, if that sounds like a lot to you, just a reminder, we are talking about a business that's doing $100,000 per month. So if you have to give 1% of that per month to an accounting team to stay legit, to have clean numbers, to not get in trouble by the IRS, like you don't want someone like your aunt doing this because she took a bookkeeping class 30 years ago, okay? And again, if this sounds like it's gonna be expensive, well, it's all relative, right? Because it's 1%. So yes, is $1,000 a month a lot of money? Yes. But also, is it worth it for you not to have to think about it and for it to be done correctly? Absolutely. And that's what we're gonna get into is how do you actually afford all this stuff? How do you afford this accounting team? How do you afford this marketing agency? How do you afford basically not being the one in the crew and having to pay other people to do that? How do you afford it? And that's what we're gonna get into. But these are the things that your accountant should be doing. Again, the bookkeeping, tax prep, tax planning, and payroll. And now you see here a marketing agency. And you're like, well, that doesn't make sense, Tyler. You already told me I'm doing the marketing. You're doing the certain aspects of marketing that are giving like a brand, that are building character. You don't want to trust a marketing agency to do that because they're never going to be able to understand your brand voice, who you're trying to go after as much as you are, and just getting out in your community. Even if you hire a marketing partner, they can't do this stuff well. Like that's something you need to be doing because you're the face of the business. There's other aspects of marketing, though, that you absolutely should not be doing. Because again, you don't have time to master all this stuff. It was actually funny because when I started my marketing agency for concrete contractors, it was funny because I hired one really, really, really well-paid person. And he said, cool, Tyler, so what am I gonna be doing? I said, well, okay, all I need you to do is website design, SEO, Google Ads, social ads, email and text marketing, branding, that's it. And what was funny is he looked at me and his jaw dropped. He went, because if you really think about it, each one of these is its own specialty. Now on my marketing team, I have website designers, I have SEO specialists, I have Google ad specialists, social ad specialists, email and text marketing and branding specialists. Like this isn't just one person that you just throw in and they do everything. Like that's pretty silly. And granted, don't feel bad if you thought that because I thought that and it like that was after 5 years in business. And so it was only after realizing how deep each of these individual things are that I began to realize like, oh, like one person can't do all this. And so if one person who is a full-time marketer can't do all this, then how is it possible that you would be able to do this stuff and do it well if you're also doing all this? And guys, I know a ton of you in the comment section, you guys are gonna be like, oh, well, Tyler, I do this and, you know, blah, 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 and I get great results. Actually, I just talked to someone literally yesterday, and they were actually a $6 million business. They're huge, and they did all this stuff in-house, and I was very impressed. And then after talking to them, I realized that, one, my business, even though I'm half the size, I'm getting triple the amount of leads per year. And so you're like, oh, well, Tyler, that doesn't make sense. And it's because they were selling their work for pretty damn cheap. And so, yeah, did they need to be that great at this stuff? No. Anyone, guys, can be an order taker and sell work for pretty cheap. If that's what you want to do and not make very much money, keep in mind, the reason the $6 million business reached out to me is because they are doing $6 million and they're only making $150K and they're working 6 days a week. Does that sound very good? I don't think so, right? Do you actually want that life? Do you want the headache of running 30 people in your business? That's how many people they had. And they felt, and man, I hope they don't watch this video because I'm gonna feel kind of bad because I'm kind of slamming them, but they felt so good that they're managing all this stuff in-house. When in reality, because they're managing all this stuff in-house, they have to compete on things like price, which is making them basically unprofitable. You see what I mean? And so remember, like what we talked about in the very beginning of this video, there's a price to paying someone to do something. There's also a price to doing something not well, not well, okay? And I'm telling you, the price of doing something not well is by far worse than paying someone who knows what they're doing to do this stuff, okay? Lastly, the very last thing that you're gonna be doing is managing vendors, right? Having your relationships with a ready-mix company. Maybe you wanna sub out some of the demo work. Maybe you want certain subs like day finishers, things like that, equipment rental. Basically anything that's like an ancillary service or a needed service to complete your projects that you necessarily don't want to do in-house, you're the one managing all of them. So you manage all these relationships. So if we zoom out, basically from a high level, what are you doing? You are hiring and managing a great foreman who is managing a team of 3 other people. That's all you need to do $100K a month. That's it. You are going to be a project manager. You're going to line up your crews. You're going to do the customer communications. You're going to do the invoicing, etc. You are really going to do the sales. That's your big role, okay? That's your big role. You are going to do the sales. You are going to do some of the marketing events. You're going to do the partner management, and these are the partners that you need. At the end of the day, you really just need 2 major ones, an accounting firm who knows what they're doing because you need clean, accurate books to make decisions. You need a good marketing agency who knows what they're doing, who knows how to generate a real ROI, okay? And you need to have ancillary vendors that you have good relationships with and you could get good pricing from. So between all of that, this is the structure of the business. And that doesn't actually look that complicated, but now you're probably thinking, well, Tyler, how do I afford all this? That's what the next section of the video is for. I'm gonna see you there. Hey guys, quick time out. And I started this business with my father-in-law 6 years ago. And one of the things, that people ask me all the time is, how were you guys able to scale up so fast? How are you guys able to be so successful? And the more that I've realized when I've been thinking about it, it's because he has a certain skill set and I have a totally different skill set. And so if you're going through this video, you're going through business alone, you might be good at certain things, but it's almost impossible to be good at everything in business. And so that's what a partner is for. And I would love to partner with you guys in your business and do exactly what I did with my father-in-law, where we could take your existing skill set, add whatever needs to be needed on the other side, maybe some of the things that you're not so great at, but we could work together on, so that way we can unlock your growth and your success and really grow your business together. If that's something you're interested in, click the link down below to learn more. All right, we're on the back end, and now it's time to talk about the fun stuff, at least to me, which is the money. It's kind of like, Tyler, are you sure that this business model works? Like, I don't really get it, right? Like, you're probably like, oh, well, you're telling me to spend all this money. How is it actually gonna come back to me? How am I gonna make money? And so I actually went through and built out a fake business plan for you guys. And we'll walk through. And it literally has each expense that you could possibly think of. And I promise you, you're probably looking at this right now and you're like, dude, Tyler, this is like way too much. And I agree. This is too much for a little YouTube video. I guess big YouTube video, considering we've been on here forever. But I'm just going to quickly go through this, and I'm going to highlight, certain things that are the most important. And also, I want to show you how much you can spend in business. But again, if you're doing the things that I recommended at the very beginning, which is you're marketing properly, you're selling properly, you have a unique value proposition, you're doing those things, and you could differentiate yourself from the competition. All of that obviously hinges that you are going to do that correctly and well, and that you're going to believe me and trust me. So if you don't do any of that, then none of this matters, because then you're going to have to compete on price. And if you have to compete on price, then, well, you could just be like that $6 million company. We're going to do $6 million a year, make 150K. Granted, could you make a little bit more money than that? Sure. But that guy's working like 6 days a week, super hard. And I'm not saying that you're not going to have to work hard. That's not what I'm saying. All I'm just saying is, would I prefer to make a lot of money while not having to manage 30 other people? Ideally, yes. And do I still want to work hard but have it be controllable and have a healthy profit margin? Yes. So that's what I've built for you. Okay, we're not going to go through a lot of this stuff. There's certain things, basically what we're doing here in this section of the business plan, this is what I actually go through with my partner clients, is we walk through and we document out how much are you going to spend on overhead. You'll notice that this business is spending about $267,000 in overhead, which that's about right. Most of the time that I see businesses, their back end of the business costs way, way, way more than what they think. And again, like a lot of this stuff, like, do we actually need miscellaneous expenses of $12,000? No, of course not. That's just like stuff that we didn't plan for. That's 12 grand. Are we actually going to spend $8,400, see right here, on meals and entertainment? No. Are we going to spend $20,000 on a general liability umbrella? Probably not, right? There's a lot of these things that we have in here that are just in case. Because if we could make money where all of this stuff is going wrong, or we have all these expenses, then imagine if we save some money and we make more profit than what we actually thought we were going to make. I don't know about you, but I would much rather be pleasantly surprised than bummed. So we're even budgeting for things like how many hours are we going to have, say, for instance, with our crew that are unbillable. We're doing things like shop cleanup. We're doing things like company meetings, etc. We're paying them, but we're not actually billing our clients for that. How many jobs are we going to have to replace? 3 jobs a year at $5,000 a year, or at $5,000 per job? Again, that's probably not likely, but at least we have it budget. We have budget for small equipment, tool and safety. We have things like insurance, licensing, maintenance, repairs, accounting and legal fees, right? We talked about this earlier. You're budgeting for accounting and legal fees. You're budgeting for a marketing company to do the back end of the marketing to bring the right type of customers. And quite a bit. And again, to do $100,000 a month, especially if you're also doing things like networking events and things like that, do you absolutely have to spend this amount, especially over time? Do you build up a brand and all that? Probably not. But like, if we can make money on this and be extra sure, all I know is, and the way that I look at business, guys, and I think this is very important, why don't we just plan for the worst case scenario? And then that way, if things are worse or if they're better, then that's great. Okay. Cleaning, like rent, we have rent for like a yard, utilities, bad debt, that's if someone doesn't pay you. We have all this stuff, okay? And we're going to zoom out. Next, we have your owner's salary. So a lot of people think, they say, oh, well, how much does your business make? And they say, oh, my business makes, $150K a year. But if that includes your salary, then your business actually doesn't make that. Because here's the way that you want to look at this. If you were to go down in a car accident and you couldn't work and you had to pay someone to do all the things that I illustrated to do earlier, like the networking events, the sales, etc., how much at minimum would you have to pay that person to take your spot? Because at the end of the day, if your business can't afford to pay someone else to do it, then again, you don't really have a business. You just have a job, okay? So in our model, we're budgeting that the owner's going to pay himself a $80K salary and the business will make money on top of that. So we'll get into that. Next, what equipment do you really need? You don't need much. You need a work truck for your crew to operate in, and you need an estimating truck. That's it, right? And some of you are like, Tyler, this might be more expensive. That's fine. It could be an expensive work truck. It could also be a lot cheaper. Doesn't really matter. And I'll show you guys that here in a little bit. And if you're like, well, Tyler, this is just depreciation. Where's the actual interest on on what I'm paying? It's right here. We're saying that you're going to spend about $1,000 or $10,000 a year just in interest. Okay. So if you don't have money to afford this stuff, that's fine. That's what we have financing for, right? Like you don't have to pay for all this stuff up front, but you have things like depreciation because obviously you don't use up a truck in 1 year. It lasts for a long time. Okay. Let's move on to workforce. All right. What did we talk about before? You need 4 people on your crew. You need a foreman, you need 2 finishers, and a laborer. Let's just say that they're all going to work 12 months a year, 40 hours per week. And I'll actually show you, if you actually work more than this, you can actually make a lot more money. But let's just say, again, we're just going to stick reasonable, 40 hours per week. That means that per year, you have 8,000 hours of crew time to basically sell. So think of that. If you sell $1 billion project, can you actually do $1 billion? No. Like you can only do a certain amount. So this is a limited, finite resource that we have and that we are going to charge for, right? That's what we have. This is what we're going to pay our guys. Like I said, we're going to pay a foreman really, really good money. In my area, if someone's making $35 an hour, that would be good money for a foreman. And again, the reason why I like this model, and I'll show you guys here in a little bit, is we could technically change these numbers and you could see how it affect the business. But let's move on for now. Okay, we have labor burden. All this really means is when you pay someone, when we pay our foreman $35 an hour, unfortunately, we're not actually paying $35 an hour. We're paying 20% above that, at least in my state, due to taxes, right? Social Security tax. We have workers' comp insurance. We have all that crap, right, that we have to pay for. That's what that 20% is. So lastly, okay, if we have those 8,000 hours to sell, basically all this is these 4 people's hours added up, and that's what we have to sell. And in this model, we're going to assume that we're charging $85 an hour, okay? And again, I can kind of show you guys the differences, and we're going to do that here at the end of this, of if you were to charge something else. Just so you guys know, if you guys think this is a lot, my business charges $105 an hour. I also know some people that are charging $50 an hour, but these are the guys that are broke, okay? $85 an hour, I promise you, is very achievable in basically any single market. Maybe unless you live in like freaking Compton. Like if you don't live in the literal ghetto, like bad area, this is very, very achievable. Okay, very achievable. I know people in Alabama, in places that like aren't considered to be really wealthy, that are charging at least this. Okay, I promise you guys. Then we have markups. Again, I'm not going to get into this. I don't need to make this video super confusing. The biggest thing that you need to see here is material markup of 35% and sub ratio 15%. But let's just get into basically if we were to add all this stuff up, how does this actually look? Okay, so here is how everything looks. Let's just say, again, if you have these 4 people working 2,000 hours each, so you have this 8,000 hours. If you sell it for $85 an hour, then that means that that's how much you're going to make in labor. Okay, but now we have other things. Material sales. How is this calculated? Well, out of this 1.2 million, this is what I found a pretty close ratio. About 25% of your job cost is actually going to come through materials, okay? And then what I recommend to do is marking up your materials by 35%. Okay, so again, if we take 304,000 times 1.35, that means that from material sales, that's what your revenue is going to be, right? Now we have things like equipment sales, and this number is a little bit arbitrary, but if you are going to be selling out, which I recommend as far as that minimum, let's see here. Let's just say that you're going to be selling out your skid steer or your mini skid on a daily basis, which you should be, because if someone's using your equipment, then like you should be charging that, because at minimum, like you have to pay for things like fuel and all that we calculated in overhead, right? So let's just say that your equipment is going to be about 40K. And then lastly, your subcontractor sales are going to be 102,000. That's your sub cost. That's going to be things like your day finishers, your pump, because you should be marking up your subs by at least 50%, which that's what we're doing here. So this is basically what it looks like. But again, I'll show you guys how much money you'll actually make. And at the end of the day, it's not that complicated. Basically, if you're doing $1.2 million, so 100K a month, and you're doing it at 45% gross profit, then your business is gross profiting $561,000. You know, and a lot of the times where I see people go wrong is, again, because they're not doing the marketing and the sales that I'm recommending. Let's just say if they're doing the same amount of revenue, but then instead they're only doing, say, like a 30% gross profit. Again, there's other concrete influencers out there who literally suggest that you could charge as little as this, and this is what you're gross profiting. But in order to do that, just remember, guys, business is always a give and take. But let's just say that you're gonna have $0 in marketing, okay? So $0 in marketing, but because of that, now this number goes way down. It goes down to 35%. So technically, you are going to be making that $372,000 plus it's $96,000 a year extra because you're not paying on marketing. So you would make $468 compared to $561. And again, is it reasonable to think that you guys can sell that $1.239 million with $0 in marketing? Like, and the answer is like, if you actually think that, then no, at least like not for a good price. And so, you know, that is the whole reason why I recommend what I recommend, guys, is it's it's not always about what you're spending. Not always about what you're spending. A lot of times it's what are you spending and what is it getting in return? Like, will we spend money that will allow us to make more money on the back end? Of course. And that is why I'm recommending what I'm recommending, because this number, what you're charging, is super important. But we'll get into that here right now. So you can kind of see what I'm talking about here on the number side, okay? But that is not how much money your business makes. We still have to take out all of the things that we calculated before. So again, things like your unbillable time, right? Your license and permits, your indirect job expenses, your depreciation of your vehicles, your fuel, you have your repairs and maintenance, okay? Oh, look, we still have $440,000 even after all that. Well, let's keep going. Administrative salaries, right? We are going to take out as an expense from the business your salary. Does that necessarily mean, like, isn't that technically part of the money that you're still going to make at the end? Of course, yes, but the business, it's an expense, okay? We have things like your marketing company, ad budget. Again, this is an absolute worst case scenario. It's about 8% of your revenue, which I've seen people get away with a lot less, like closer to 5%. But granted, do I think you should spend a couple extra percent here to make sure that you have enough leads to sell for the prices you need to? And again, I'll show you guys some scenarios. Let's just say, oh, you have office costs. And lastly, you have all of these costs like your miscellaneous, your meals and entertainment, your big insurance, that's if people don't pay you, all of that stuff. So even if you spend all of that money on marketing and accounting and you have all of that, even with your salary of $80,000 a year, the business, so not you, because you are making $80,000 and the business is profiting $160,000 on top of that. So really, a lot of people, they like to add these together. Man, would you not want to make $240K a year from only having to manage a crew of 4 people and your main responsibility is just to be the facilitator? And can you afford mistakes? Yes, you could afford mistakes. You could afford $12,000 in miscellaneous expenses. You could afford to have 2 jobs not pay you, right? Your bad debt. You can afford warranty expense. I think, what did we budget for warranty expense? Let's see here. We budgeted $15,000 for warranty. Like, you could have all kinds of things go wrong, okay? All kinds of things go wrong. Let's just say, for instance, now, if you do more of what some of the other people tell you to do, okay, we're gonna lower our prices, we're gonna get more price competitive, but then we're gonna save on some overhead. Let's just say that we do this. Okay, we're gonna not pay marketing at all. We're gonna do all that ourselves. Well, now we're gonna have way less leads, okay? But how we're gonna make up for having less leads is we're gonna sell more of them, which instead of charging $85, I'm gonna charge $65 an hour, okay? Let's see how that impacts our business. So first and foremost, our hours stay the same because we still have to pay our guys the same amount, okay? But now we're charging about 20% less. And honestly, this is really the main difference between people that I see making a lot of money and people that are not making very much money is this is still like a decent sized business, but they're way, way, way more price competitive, right? And so even though they have a lot less leads, they could probably sell a lot more of them because they're selling off price, okay? But let's just look, okay, at a couple things. One is, before we had a gross profit of 45%, now we have a gross profit of 38% and it's on lower revenue. Ouch, okay? This number used to be about $570,000, now it's about $360,000. And again, all of these costs basically stay the same. The only difference is how much you're gonna be charging as far as on everything else. Basically, you're just being cheaper, right? That's fine. You're just being cheaper, not a big deal. Okay, so now we're gonna scroll down and now we're gonna see, oh, wow, look at that. 0% on marketing. Ooh, good. Is it good? I don't know. Let's find out. Well, we go down to the bottom. Ooh, man, we're only going to profit $60,000. And to be honest, this is a best case scenario because do you think that you could sell $1 million a year off $0 of marketing? Probably not. Probably not. But do you feel like you can sell let's see here. All I did is I just reverted back to my original plan. Do you feel like you could sell 1.2 million if you spent $8,000 a month in marketing? Is that pretty unimaginable that you wouldn't be able to sell this amount if you had that many leads coming in? You kind of see what I'm saying here. And again, that's why all of the pieces of the puzzle have to work together. Like, you can't just do all this and then skimp out on your sales process. Because if you skimp out on your sales process, then all of a sudden you're going to be having to charge less money because you are going to be competing on price. Instead of 85 an hour, you might have to charge 65 an hour, which again, now you're in big trouble. Okay. Now you're not making money. Now you're losing money. Okay. Are you going to be able to do all this and then not pay an accountant because you want to save time and do the books yourself? Like, no, guys, you have to be focused on the things that bring you in money. And the things that bring you in money are getting your name out there, building a local presence, so like networking events, referral partners, things like that, doing sales, and then managing a great crew. That's it. You literally have 4 guys. If you have 4 guys, you charge this much per hour, you're good. In my business, I charge $105 an hour, okay? So that's when things get really crazy. With 4 guys, and I have seen this, I know people that are doing $1.5 million with 4 people, and they're charging 50% margins, basically. So if a job costs them $5,000, they're charging $10,000. If a job costs them $7,000, they're charging $14,000, okay? But at the end of the year, they are making so much money. And I'm telling you guys, I've seen people that have $3 million, $5 million, $10 million businesses who aren't making this much. Okay? That is the reason why I recommend the model that I recommend. It's so we can charge more money, but have a great product, a great service. I'm not saying charge more and don't do anything. I'm not saying that. We need to have enough leads so we can charge the margin that we need. So when all is said and done and all business expenses come out, you can make serious money. And keep in mind, this is even after you're spending $100,000 a year in marketing, okay? So that's the reason why I recommend this model, guys. Again, is it very possible to do this where you're like, man, I'm going to not pay a marketing company and I'm going to spend, say, $1,500 a month or let's just say that's still pretty unrealistic. Let's just say $2,500 a month in ads that you're going to do yourself. Everything else stays the same. And then you're like, you know what? And instead of like getting all fancy with my sales, I'm just going to charge what everyone is charging. Say $65 an hour. That's totally fair because I'm paying my guys 30. I'm going to charge 65. I'm going to mark up my materials by 20% instead of by 35%. And I'm going to have basically $1 million business. And you know, my profit margins are reasonable. I'm making 35% gross profit. Okay. So after I pay for my labor and my materials, well, now I'm making 35%. Okay, now you scroll down, and even though you're saving money on marketing, and you're saving money on maybe accounting, and you're saving money here and there, you're gonna make $1,500. I cannot tell you guys how often I see this, which is why I'm so passionate about what I teach. I hope all this stuff makes sense. I'm sorry, because it's a lot of scrolling, it's a lot of learning, it's a lot of all that, but this is really how you do this, right? This is how you put the pieces of the puzzle together. We have marketing, we have sales, we have a great crew, and we have the right pricing model where you're not charging something like 30 to 35%. I promise you, I've seen so many people do it. And man, the only way that you're gonna make a ton of money is through working your literal ass off all the time. And can you make a lot more money if you just charge appropriately and don't get cheap with things like marketing so you have enough leads? Yes, guys, I promise you. Just with a crew of 4 people, again, if you want to just check the math, this isn't like, again, it's not really rocket science. All you're saying is you have 8,064 hours multiplied in this model. It's $105 an hour. So there's that. And then your materials and all that, again, are just being marked up 35%. And so when all is said and done, yeah, if you could have a 50% gross margin, that's great. But in reality, if you could have a 40, 45% gross margin, it'd be totally fine. So I hope this makes sense. I know that it's a lot. I tried to only hit on the most important pieces to explain the model. and that's the numbers. Hey guys, that's all that I have for you in today's video. And just remember, a good business is just like a good concrete mix. You need cement, you need water, and you need aggregates. If you're missing just one of the three, the whole entire mix does not work. It's not strong, it doesn't last a long time, and business is very similar. You need the marketing, you need the sales, you need the numbers, you need the team, you need all of it all together. So if there's anything that I can help with at all, let me know. I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. Make sure you give me a like, a subscribe to the channel. That would be very much appreciated. Click the link down below if you'd like to work together, and I'll see you guys in the next video.